Hi, and welcome back to my YouTube page. I'm Miss Fuentes, math teacher and instructional specialist, and today we have a very special guest, Miss Harun. Welcome.
Hi, I'm excited to be here.
And you are a 7th grade teacher
Yes, I am.
at MS 358.
Yep.
And for our viewers who don't know where that is, where is this school, this amazing school?
MS 358 is actually on Hillside in Jamaica, Queens. And it's an awesome little middle school. We have amazing kids who I hope are watching this right now. And yeah, I teach 7th grade, and we have 6th and 8th grade in the school as well.
Yeah, and it's a great school. Like, this is one of my favorite schools to come to. And today you're going to talk about 2 questions from a test they took last week.
Yes. So we were kind of going through integer operations, and we kept noticing that there were a few mistakes that most of the kids kind of kept making repeatedly. So I really wanted to try to bring it up and see if there were ways in which we could come up with solutions that made sense for all of them.
Okay, so we're going to look at those 2 questions today and see if we can make some sense out of them. Okay, so here we go. Okay, and today's topic, we're going to be looking at those 2 problems that have to do with integers, specifically what operation?
So specifically adding and subtracting integers.
Okay, so these are 2 questions from your test.
Yes.
All right, so let's take a look. And so this was the one question you noticed a lot of kids getting wrong, -10 plus 25. What were you seeing kids do?
So the 2 different answers that I kept seeing come up over and over again, the first was -10 plus 25 ends up equaling -35, because I believe the students were actually just adding these 2 integers and then just bringing over the negative sign. And the other answer that I kept seeing was -10 plus 25 equals 35.
Don't worry, that's us, our school bell. We're in the library. So these are 2 things we saw. We saw that your guess is that kids were just adding these 2 numbers, which makes sense because it's it's addition.
Yes.
So 10 plus 25 makes 35. And you were seeing that in both of 35. And some kids had it as a negative, some kids kept it as positive.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to try and talk about this and try and figure out how this makes sense. So one thing I think I talked to you about was 0 pairs. And 0 pair is when I have a positive number and a negative number, and I put them together, kind of like a charge. If I have a negative charge and a positive charge, those 2 charges come together, and when they're added together, they make a 0. So when I put those 2 things together, and we can think about this with money. If you owe me $1 and you have $1, when we bring these together, you still have $0.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you owe me the same as you have in your pocket, you're going to have 0. So there's something about when I have a positive and a negative. So that's why we call these 0 pairs.
Right.
So let's try and use this idea of 0 pairs. And so what you're probably going to see me do a lot is anytime I have a positive, actually, let me show it this way. So I like drawing shapes. So when I have a positive and a negative, they're going to cancel out because they are worth 0. So that's what I'm going to do. They come together. It's almost like they're going to have a fight. And when they have a man-to-man, one-on-one fight, boom, we're going to have 0. Okay? But what happens when we have more of one than the other? So, Ms. Harun, in this case, we had -10 and a positive 25. So what do we see here? We have
-10, and then we have positive 25, just like Ms. Fuentes saying, and we would then make these pairs. So we cross out exactly 10 pairs, because remember, we're just aligning exactly what we have, right? So this is our 5th pair, 6, 7, 8. Am I counting wrong? 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, I know I missed one. 10. So now, just like you were explaining, this to me makes a lot of sense, because we took out 10 pairs and we're left with all these positives. So that is how much we have remaining.
So that kind of makes sense, because if I have $25 and you owe me $10, if I have $25 and I owe you $10, then I'm really just going to have $15. And again, this is when we're adding, when all these numbers are coming together. So I want us to think that this happens when we add integers. Then I can think of my 0 pairs. So this makes sense. We had 10 0 pairs because we had 10 of these happening. Okay.
Yep.
So I hope that part makes sense. So if I'm thinking about this problem again, so if I have a negative 10 and a positive 25, what do you think a kid should be thinking in their head?
So I hope students are able to understand if I have negative 10 and positive 25, just like before, I then have negative 10 and I have at least 10 positives. These two, just like before, are going to cancel out. And once that happens, I should be left with 15 positives.
So in your head, when you're seeing that you have positive and negatives, you know you're going to lose some.
Yes.
Because you already know they have different signs. So in my head, I can just do some subtraction, 25 minus 10. I'm going to find the difference.
Yes.
So everyone who's listening, when they're different integers, find the difference.
I think that's a really good way to remember it.
And then I know I'm going to have a positive 25 because I have more positives. So when they're different signs and I'm adding, find the difference, which we know is subtraction. Okay? And then we can figure out who's going to win the fight. In this case, it was the negatives. But the second problem you had looked different.
Yes.
Okay, why is this one so different?
So this one, we're actually trying to subtract. And I understand subtraction is a little tricky. So a lot of kids were kind of making similar mistakes here as far as, what to do when they have the subtraction operation. Something that I noticed a lot in this case, I had students who were doing negative 12 minus 42 ends up giving them 30. So basically they just subtracted and then didn't carry over any signs. And the other version was negative 12 minus 42 gives them negative 30. So again, they just did the subtraction, brought over the negative sign.
Okay, so now they're seeing that there's a negative. So they're really subtracting.
Yeah.
But again, I'm subtracting with two negative numbers. That's hard.
Yes.
So I want to go back to before we said when we're adding, when they're different, we can do that. But here we have double subtraction. So we're going to do something called additive inverse. It's so much easier if we're turning this into addition. So we're going to turn the subtraction into addition using something we call additive inverse. So I'm getting the opposite sign. So watch what I do. So I have negative 12 minus 42. So I'm going to keep the first number. And I want it to be an addition one. So it's kind of like I'm changing this to addition. And I have to figure out what is the inverse, the opposite of positive 42.
So the opposite of positive 42 would probably be negative 42.
Possibly or definitely?
Definitely.
Definitely. So I'm looking at this sign. I want us to think this sign and this number here. So I'm turning it into an addition sentence. And we do this with a subtraction problem.
Yeah.
Because again, when I'm adding, it makes it so much easier to understand this problem. So now that we have it kind of as an addition sentence, we'll try and think about what this means. And think about it in your heads as a money situation. If I owe you $12 and I owe you another $42, I'm going to owe you a lot of money. So if I give you $30, are you going to be happy with that?
Probably not.
No, because I know I owe you at least more than $42. I owe you a lot of money. So let's try this out. We already drew it because there were lots of zeros to draw. And, oh my God, do we have any 0 pairs?
No. These are all negative, so there are no 0 pairs.
Yeah, there are no 0 pairs. So I'm not crossing anything out because there's nothing here. 2 negatives don't equal 0. If I owe you $1 and I owe you another $1, I owe you $2. I don't owe $0. So again, you're kind of just thinking, we're going to add all this up together. We're going to put all this together now, and I just owe you more money. So, oh my God, how much money do I owe you?
So at this point, I would just add the numbers and then just carry over the sign. So we're just going to add 12 and 42, which ends up being 54. And we're just going to bring the sign because all of these circles are negatives. So that means our answer is still going to be negative. So just like you're saying, you now owe me $54.
Yeah, I owe you a lot of money. So even though they're both negative signs, I'm still just adding. And in my head, I can just think all I'm doing is adding it together.
Exactly.
Okay? So when I'm adding and they're different, I have to subtract. When I'm adding and they're the same, I just add them all together. So as a matter of fact, why don't we just make that into a new rule on the next page? And just so everybody has a rule, because we want everyone to be really successful here. So adding and subtracting with integers. So our first rule is when they're different, find the difference, which means subtract. And when they're the same, add the integers. And look what sign is bigger. Or look what sign you have. So if you're adding two negatives, you're just more negative. If you're adding two positives, it's more positive.
Yep.
And our big star moment for today was we can turn a subtraction problem into an addition problem.
Which makes it a whole lot easier.
Oh yeah, it does. With additive inverse. So this makes a lot of sense. Some tips for doing these types of problems. Well, I hope this really helps your kids and the kids who made this error on your test.
I hope so too.
Yeah, I think it really can. And as always, we have new videos every Tuesday and Friday. I want to thank our guest, Ms. Harun. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun.
I hope you had a great time with us, and I hope your kids really enjoy it. And as always, they can just subscribe to the page. Maybe we'll have her as a guest, or Mr. Lowe. Oh my God, or Mr. Cobra. We can have the whole team here sometimes. I think that'd be fun.
That would be pretty cool.
And as always, you can also follow us on Facebook, Math Mini Lessons, or if you have other problems you want to see, you can just email at sarah@mathminilessons.com. Okay? Well, take care, guys. Till next time.
Bye.